right, I am pleased to bring to order this workshop meeting of the Town of Poughkeepsie Town Board on April 15th, 2026. We'll begin with a salute to the flag. I just want to say, as I have been, that we are at war, and I'd like a moment of silence after with a pledge of allegiance to remember all our military and their families and all who are in harm's way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll begin with roll call.
Good evening, I'm Barbara Laird, representing the 2nd Ward.
Good evening, Shanta Tangaya, Ward 3.
Happy Tax Day. It's Emily Watson from Ward 4.
Is tax day ever happy?
Sorry. I mean, it's over, so yes.
Good evening, Ryan Sharp, 5th Ward.
Ann Shershon, 6th Ward.
Felicia Salvatore, Town Clerk. Rebecca Edwards, Town Supervisor. Okay, just a couple of quick announcements. I wanted to say thank you again to everyone who in the Highway Department, as well as the Recreation Department, and volunteers, parents, the leagues, who got us ready for opening day for all the town youth leagues this past Saturday. I know a lot of folks were there for the celebration, and it was great. And also thank you to everybody who's participating in Spring Earth Day cleanups. It's actually Earth Month. We've had several so far. More are coming up this weekend. I think every town board member is sponsoring at least one, and the list is on the town board website, and I encourage people to jump in your own street or into one of these and help us make sure that things are looking tidy now that all the snow has melted. Boy, has the snow melted at this point. Okay, so I believe that we're beginning with a presentation and discussion tonight from Autumn Sky. So I move that we put that on the agenda. Well, I don't think we have to make a motion here at all. I think this is just workshop. So we'll start with Autumn Sky. Do you you were able to do you were able to connect?
I'm getting Zoom up and running now, but yes.
Okay, great.
Do you want to open the floor for public comment first?
Oh, yes, we should open the floor for public comment. That's the piece I forgot.
Perfect.
That gives you the time. Excellent, that's great. Oh, welcome, Emily, that's great. I move to suspend the rules for public comment on any item on tonight's agenda for up to 3 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 6-0. So the floor is open for anybody who's in the room who might like to speak on any items on tonight's agenda. Yes, Steve, welcome. And then we'll move to the folks who are on Zoom.
Steve Osclese, 3rd Ward. I'm going to time myself so I don't go over. I want to speak about the proposed affordable and workforce housing law, not just what it intends to do, but what it's likely to do based on real-world results and local financial impact. We all agree on the goal. Housing costs are too high. Young families, seniors, and working residents are being squeezed. The question is not whether we act, it's whether you act in a way that actually produces more housing. Because if you get this wrong, you will make the problem worse. This proposal requires that any development of 10 or more units set aside below market housing. On paper, that sounds reasonable, but in practice, these policies function like tax on new construction. And when you tax something, you get less of it. We don't have to guess what happens next. We can look at Albany, New York, where similar policies have led to fewer projects moving forward, and in some cases, projects not being built at all. After implementing a similar mandate, housing production in Albany dropped by more than 60%, from 291 units per year to just 110. Affordable housing didn't increase, it actually declined, and development has stalled for years. Even though Albany required affordable units, fewer projects got built and less housing offered. The risk we're facing is real. What it means in real dollars. The typical 100-unit development in the town of Poughkeepsie Under the law, 10% or 10 units must be rented below market rates. If those units are discounted even by $800 to $1,200 per month, that's a revenue loss of roughly $100,000 to $140,000 per year, or $3 to $4 million over a 30-year period. Developers don't absorb the loss, they adjust for it. That means one of three things happens. Rents go up on the remaining units, the project gets scaled back, or the project doesn't get built at all. If that project doesn't get built, the town loses tax revenue. That same 100-unit project could easily represent 25 to 35 million in assessed value, which would be, hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes per year. Just a few projects like this don't move forward. We're talking about millions in lost tax base over time. When the tax base doesn't grow, the burden shifts to existing homeowners. There's also structural issues with the proposal. The 10-unit threshold creates a cliff, encouraging developers to build 9 units instead of 10. The cost for affordable house units gets shifted to the middle-income renters, raising their rents. Density bonuses sound helpful, but often don't offset real-world construction and financing costs. And unlike Albany, this law offers no fee in lieu option, removing flexibility that keep projects viable. So the unintended consequence is this. You passed the law meant to create affordable housing, but we end up with fewer projects, less housing supply, millions in lost tax revenue, and ultimately higher costs for the very residents you're trying to help. It's not speculation. That's what we've seen elsewhere happening, specifically in Albany and other locations.
It's about 3.5 minutes now, so.
Sorry about that. So just, I'm not saying we don't need to do anything, but we need to encourage building, not discourage it, make incentives and build off proposals like the governor's let them build proposal, expand supply across housing units, and it can be done because one of the presentations tonight is from Autumn Sky, which is talking about workforce housing, affordable housing, without this law. So it can be done, and I think it should move forward. Thank you. Sorry for going on. I'm
Okay.
reading this instead of my clock.
Thanks very much. So anyone else in the room who wanted to speak to any item on tonight's agenda? If not, I will move to the folks online. Doreen, welcome.
Thank you. I just had a quick question about, there was an update to the package a couple hours before the meeting. Was that only to change agenda item number 3 to postpone that?
Yes.
It was. There's an additional representative from Walmart who couldn't be here tonight, and so we're going to take that up next week when all the folks who are going to do a presentation can be here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else on Zoom who wanted to speak? All right, seeing none, I move that we return to regular session.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And now,
I'm sorry, Supervisor, I meant
Sorry.
to speak and I didn't hit my unmute. Is there a way we can reverse that?
yes,
It's
we
David
can.
Kaminsky.
Welcome, and yeah, sometimes that's a little problem on Zoom. Welcome, and you're very welcome to have your 3 minutes, David.
Thank you. Good evening, Supervisor, members of the Town Board. My name is Dave Kaminsky. I am a real estate developer, owner of numerous commercial properties, and a resident here in the town of Poughkeepsie. I want to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to the Supervisor and to the Planning Department for the cooperative and constructive approach they have taken in working with members of the development community on this affordable and workforce housing law. The amendments that have been incorporated reflect genuine leadership, and I want that acknowledged on the record. I want to take a moment to explain the fundamental economic reckoning that every developer faces when they commit to building affordable housing, because I think it is important for this board to understand exactly what you are asking of us and what tools make it possible. In today's environment, construction costs are rising every year. Labor, materials, insurance, financing, all of it is more expensive than it was a year ago and even 5 years ago. When you layer affordable housing on top of that, meaning rents that are capped at 30% of 60% of AMI, you are simultaneously increasing costs and reducing revenue. That gap has to be closed by offsets, or also called development bonuses. Without these offsets, the project does not get built, period. Communities across the country have figured this out. They are not just saying, we want affordable housing. They are putting real tools on the table, density bonuses to allow more units per acre, waiver or elimination of impact fees. All impact fees in many towns are completely eliminated for affordable housing. Expedited permitting, which saves carrying costs and that can run tens of thousands of dollars a month. Tax abatements and tax credits that are not considered in this law. These are the tools that make affordable housing viable, and I encourage this board to continue building them into this law. This brings me to parking, because parking is not a side issue. It is one of the most powerful cost levers available to this board and an issue that the town has discussed over many years and incorporated into its comprehensive master plan. I believe it is important to note that the national trend among planning authorities is not simply to reduce parking requirements for affordable housing, it is to eliminate them entirely. Numerous counties, cities, and towns across the country have moved to complete elimination of parking requirements for affordable housing. The American Planning Association confirmed in a 2025 parking reform, including full elimination for income-restricted housing, and it is now among the most broadly recommended strategies for reducing housing costs and encouraging affordable housing. National research consistently demonstrates that affordable housing residents have significantly lower automobile ownership rates than market rate residents. Parking represents one of the most significant cost components of multifamily housing development. It's important to remember that the inclusion of affordable housing within a multifamily project reduces income to the developer owner, which results in a need to lower overall parking costs. Parking is simply expensive to construct, and it increases our development costs substantially. Most of you might know that a single surface parking space can cost $15,000 to $20,000 to build. In parking garages, it rises to $40,000 to $60,000 per space, and in underground parking, over $100,000. Towns and cities across the country are not just reducing parking requirements, they are eliminating them entirely. The results have been dramatic: more economic development, more construction jobs, and more affordable housing actually built. The proposed law this board is considering, which includes a major reduction in parking requirements for exactly affordable units, is exactly right. My hat is off to you. The law you are considering tonight, with the amendments that have been incorporated, is a serious and meaningful commitment to affordable housing in our town. I urge the board to continue in that spirit, to use every offset or bonus available, to think creatively about parking fees and approvals, and prioritize development in our town center where affordable housing creates the most community benefit. The economics are hard, but the right tools, it can be done. This board has the power to provide these two. I completely support this law. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, I move that we return to regular session.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, and now let's talk about more about affordable housing. That's our theme tonight, so welcome.
Yes, what a perfect segue. Thank you. So let me share my screen here. Okay. So Kyle Ahern with Labella Associates. Alicia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Alicia DeMarco with the Affordable Housing Conservancy.
We also have on Zoom Chris Durr with Rockabill Consulting and Steve Machinsky with Autumn Sky Development. So this project goes back a couple months ago. Steve got this kicked off. We've had a couple pre-app meetings with the supervisor and the planning department to show them the initial concept. We've made a couple tweaks to it since then, relatively minor, which we will go over. But the culmination of that is what you have in front of you. So this is a parcel off of Route 9D. It's about 23 and change acres. It is located just south of the shops at South Hills. There was a previous single-family subdivision proposed on this parcel, is approved I want to say back in 2012. That project never was constructed, obviously. It was, you'll recall in 2012, the economy was not great. Since then, construction has only gotten more expensive, so it's remained economically unviable. With that said, this project fills a need that the town has, the whole region really, if not the whole country. The proposal here is similar to a project that was recently finished construction just to the south of here. It's actually on the side of the aerial here. South Hills Commons, which was rezoned to the RM district. So we are requesting the same rezoning of the the western portion of the parcel. The eastern side, it's currently zoned R20. The eastern side, you can see the divide here. The eastern side is currently zoned SHC, and that portion of the site, we would be seeking a anchor project zoning. That zoning is for mixed-use projects, and we have mixed use on site, but we also think that the most mixed use component of this project is just the fact that it's in such close proximity to South Hills. We have been in talks also with the owner of South Hills. They have indicated that they're certainly open to, at a minimum, a pedestrian connection. Ultimately the goal would be to have both pedestrian and vehicular access between the two, which would make that mixed use connection between the two sites ideal. Like I said, we do also have on site, we do have a daycare that is proposed on the opposite side of the Route 9D frontage from the main entrance to the site. There's no direct connection because you can't see it on this concept plan, but there's a very steep grade between Route 9D and this portion of the site. So, as I mentioned, 198 units. And this was one of the main changes after our initial pre-app meeting. It was requested that we incorporate not just rental units, which are the apartment buildings, but also an option and a component for home ownership. So these townhouses were added to incorporate that into the project. We also, and the layout you see here is driven primarily by rock outcroppings, which you can see here. So we were trying to avoid that to, again, back to the question of construction costs and economic viability, keeping that off the rock outcroppings while also maintaining as much of a buffer as we can from the neighbors to the north. This is Tanglewood Drive here and Old English Way. Sorry, I got those switched. Old English Way here and Tanglewood here. So for the RM zone, you are required to have a 50-foot setback on that side, and we have 100 feet to the buildings. We're maintaining as much of the existing woods there as we can, and then we're also adding additional screening in front of that. And in addition to that, these two buildings on the north side of the drive aisle were originally proposed as 3 stories. Once we added the townhouses into the mix, we lost some units here, and we did that by reducing that building down to 2 stories. So we're trying to make that impact visually from the neighbors as minimal as we can. So the RM zone in total is proposing 86 units. 76 of them are the apartments, and then 10 townhomes. On the anchor side, we have 112 units that are located in these 4 buildings. These would be and actually before I go to the anchor zoning, my apologies, these two buildings on the south side would still be 3 stories. On the anchor side, they are also 3-story buildings, but they do have walkouts. Based on the existing topography, there's a large low area on the easternmost side of the parcels, so that will be used for stormwater retention and also allows for a walkout, which adds 4 units to each of those buildings, so that adds to the 112. So that's kind of the engineering of this. I know Chris is going to go, and Alicia will go through what their roles for this project, as well as what their organizations do, in a more general sense, and talk about workforce housing from that aspect. So I think we can do that, and then we can come back to any planned comments you guys might have. Alicia, do you want to kick it off?
Sure, is Chris on the line there? I can't see him. Alicia DeMarco, the Affordable Housing Conservancy. We are a nonprofit affordable and senior housing developer. We've worked with Rockaville on previous projects. I think in your packets you'll find Harmony Hall. There's a promotional thing we put out. That's a recent project that we completed with them. We're very proud of. We'd love to have anybody come tour that project. I think Supervisor Edwards and I discussed that, and we're in the process of renting that up. It's been a great project for the community and for us as an organization. Chris, are you on the line? I don't wanna...
Yeah, I think Chris is going to give a more, general affordable housing discussion.
Is he able to join?
I think I saw him in there, so I just think, no, I think he's in.
He may need to unmute himself.
Hi there, this is Chris Durr.
Hi.
Hi, Chris.
Chris, do you think you could give the board a summary of Rockaville in general, but also just, a quick run through of workforce housing and, what your typical project would look like? We can go, I am sharing my screen so I can go to any of those photos that we had submitted in the packet. Well, you just let me know what to show.
Sure, I can. And I apologize, I couldn't join you all in person, but I appreciate your flexibility for me to join via Zoom. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we hear you.
We did hear you. Uh-oh.
We are based in New York, based in Buffalo, New York. However, we do work nationally, and I've worked for most of my career in affordable housing. It's great to see that the town is acknowledging and embracing the need.
Chris, you're breaking up a bit.
I've included in the packet information on a development that I recently finished in the town of Saratoga Springs, and that's the model for the project that we proposed here.
Keeps going.
Yeah, Chris, we can't hear you beyond a couple sentences at a time. But I think I can walk them through the the examples that we submitted.
That'd be great.
And we can also go through, I think you touched on Rockaville's, history a bit in your cover letter, so we can also kind of go through that quickly. So this is, on the concept plan, the 3-story building that was shown. There's 2 different ones. This is one of them. This is primarily located on the anchor side of the project. It would also be one of the 4 buildings on the RM side, specifically the southwest most building. This is, I believe, the project that has been built up in Saratoga Springs. I believe this is the same model. We'll have to make some tweaks. They didn't have any 2-story versions, so that will have to be a slight tweak. They didn't have a walkout, so there's a couple changes, but from the front elevation on this specific building, this is, what you would see as far as, layout. I believe there was also, no, why is it only showing me the same one? We already have that. Let me go to, just trying to go in order here. This is the other main type of apartment building. This is the one that will be located on the RM side. 3 of those 4 buildings. So all the buildings that are not, the previous one that I just showed you. The one on the south side, southeast, will be this exact, 3 stories in the middle with 2 stories on the sides, and then the 2 that I discussed on the north side will be that central 3-story section will be lowered down to the 2 stories.
Can you talk about the mix of 1, 2-bedroom? Three
Yes.
bedrooms?
So there is, and that plays into those, those different types of building types. So because the anchor, the buildings proposed in the anchor zone are all 1 and 2 bedrooms. Bless you. We have 56 1-bedroom and 56 2-bedrooms. The project does have 34 3-bedrooms as well. The townhomes are all 3 bedrooms. And then on the RM side, there's a pretty balanced mix of 26 1-bedroom, 26 2-bedroom, and 24 3-bedrooms. So overall, you can see the overall down here, mostly 1-bedroom and 2-bedrooms, but I think for a multifamily proposal, this is a pretty healthy mix of 3-bedroom as well. All right, back to my photos. I also want to get to, do that. I also want to get to the townhouses, which I don't see here. Let me see. Why they didn't come up.
The townhouses are in the submission package, though.
Yes, they're in the submission pack as well. They were refusing to open, but they were convinced the
Sure.
second time. So the elevations are shown here. We do also have, I believe it's an image, so I will get to that. Probably a little. Oh, here it is. It's the rendering. Okay. So that was the elevation. This is just a rendering of what that would look like with the exterior perspective there. This is a project up in Buffalo, so it's not. We weren't able to take an actual photo of it from the Saratoga example. So that's the outside. We do also have some examples of. And it, again, just wanted the living room. Really wanted the living room. Okay. So. I mean, we provided a handful of interior photos. I think the point that we're making is, this looks like a pretty. You wouldn't look at this and say, "Oh, it's an affordable unit." It's a very nice place to be. There are specific finishes that are changed for an affordable project versus a market rate, such as countertops. And flooring, but even market rate, a lot of times flooring is going to be, the vinyl flooring, just because it's, for a rental specifically, it's very wear resistant.
If I look at characteristics, can you hear me okay,
We hear you now.
folks?
Say it
Yeah,
quick before you lose you.
let's see if it's any better now. I tried changing my networks. I apologize. I think that when I look at distinguishing characteristics between a workforce development and a market rate development, some of the amenities are going to be different. So, for example, in the Northeast, I wouldn't do a pool in a workforce affordable deal. If it was a market rate deal, I would have to do a pool, notwithstanding it's only used for 4 months in the Northeast. Within the units, the 2 bedrooms would have just 1 bathroom. In a market rate development, 2 bedrooms would have 2 bathrooms. But as far as, and I think as was mentioned, we wouldn't use solid surface countertops. We would use a laminate countertop. But the flooring is the same, the vinyl plank, the size and the layouts are the same, as we do in market rate developments as well. It's high quality, and from an operating perspective, we're required to operate the development as workforce affordable for at least 30 years. And so incentive for us to make sure we build high quality from the first source, so that we can maintain it high quality throughout the tax credit compliance period. During that tax credit compliance period, there are lots of eyes on the development. The investors are engaged in the project. The agency, New York State Homes and Community Renewal, or the Housing Finance Agency, is engaged in the development. So there are lots of eyes on the project, as well as the debt providers. So lots of eyes on the project during the regulatory period, which is the 30-year term of the bonds.
Thanks, Chris, and we got that whole thing, so thanks.
Okay, great.
Do you want to go through, kind of describe Rockabill? Because I don't think we didn't catch that earlier.
Sure. Okay. So I probably was cutting in and out on you again. I apologize.
Nope, you're good.
I'm a principal at Rockabill. We're New York based. We have a downstate office. I'm in upstate. I'm in Buffalo. We do work nationally, but the majority of our work is in New York State, both in New York City and in upstate. We're working throughout upstate from Westchester up through the Hudson Valley, the Capital District, Finger Lakes, Southern Tier, and Western New York. We also do work in the Adirondacks. All of that work is affordable and workforce housing. The underlying financing for that is driven from HCR and HFA. What we are proposing here is 4% bond financing that would be secured through HFA.
And my apologies, Chris. You were describing Rockabill while I was changing photos, so but the board got to hear it twice, so that's great.
That's okay.
So I mean, I think that's kind of the summary of the project. We wanted to come before you guys get you kind of familiar with it. Like I said, there is a rezoning aspect to this, so there's a process to that, but we want to get it kicked off, get any feedback you have, answer any questions you might have at this stage. And so I'd like to turn it over to you.
You touched on it a little bit, but I just wanted to hear a little about how successful the program has been in Peekskill. Saratoga, sorry, Saratoga. Yeah, my bad.
So yeah, as one of your residents commented during the public comment period, there's a real desperate need for affordable housing throughout New York State. In the Saratoga Springs development, I worked with the city of Saratoga Springs on that site, which also required a rezoning, and that development is 202 units. It was fully leased in under 8 months, and there is a significant waiting list. If I had another 200 units in Saratoga, I could lease that automatically. In fact, there are 2 other projects that are similarly sized that are in construction now in Saratoga Springs because of the demand. I had a similar development, a little bit smaller. It was financed with 9% bonds in the town of Bethlehem. And that was just under 80 units. That was fully leased in under 6 months, and there's a waiting list. That was a development where we had a lot of dialogue with the community. The community was very uncertain about the project, but subsequent to being built, the community has said, gee, this turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to. Would you please come and do another project here? And so I think that that's a real testament to how the project evolved and how successful it was. We've seen similarly in New Paltz, in the senior development that Alicia made reference to, smaller, it's a 9% deal. but that's leased up very quickly. Senior deals, they lease up a little bit more slowly because a lot of time people are moving from the homes that they raise their families into. They're downsizing, and so they have to go through that process. But similarly, if we had another 50-unit development for seniors in New Paltz, we could lease that up, just as in anywhere else in the Hudson Valley, lease up very quickly.
Thanks. Could you go back to the map of the project?
Yes.
What's the potential status of, what's the right-hand side of this picture? I think it's to the north, of the possibility of linking, as you said, not only with a pedestrian pathway, but with vehicular access to the South Hills Mall.
Yeah.
It seems like that's an important, it's important to be able to make that connection. In part also, I know that if you could scroll up a little bit further, I know that the entry onto Old English Way is proposed to be emergency only, right? There would be a gate there.
Correct.
So it would only be for emergency access. But I still think, given that this is a long, thin, and given the orientation toward the South Hills Mall, it would make sense for there to be a connector there. And I know that's not entirely under your control, but.
Right, so,
So Supervisor, I can share with you the conversation that I had with the representatives of the owners. It was a very productive and collegial conversation. Where they stand now, I don't want to speak for them, but their intention, as was shared with me, is to seek a developer, a multifamily developer, to develop the parking lot that is immediately adjacent to the site. And then seek approvals from the town for development of that multifamily. They do love the idea of having more residents living within walking distance of the commercial and the retail in the center. So from that perspective, the number of units that this site and that site would be would exceed the number of units that we could do workforce housing in a single phase. It's too many units to do with the Housing Finance Agency. It would be in excess of 400 units, which would just be too big for an HFA finance deal in upstate.
It could be
200
done
units.
It could be done in stages, but not all at once?
It could prospectively be done in stages. What the Housing Finance Agency would look to see is they'd look to fund a deal, see it developed and stabilized, and then fund a subsequent deal. They would be reluctant to make a commitment and fund a deal without the initial phase being constructed and stabilized.
Okay.
Having said that, I looked at it in 3 degrees for accessibility. The first was easy for the shopping center owners, which is pedestrian access via a path to connect the two. That's easy because that has nominal impact on the site layout for the eventual development in the parking area. The second, which is relatively easy as well, is emergency vehicular access. The thing that is a little bit harder for them to make a commitment to now is vehicular access to access our site, because they don't know now what that layout is going to be, and they would be reluctant to make a commitment now that there would be that access in the absence of having that plan for development of their site. Having said that, they did offer that they would understand if it was an expectation that was placed upon them that by the municipality that any approval of their site plan development would include access to our site. So they understand that, they're open to that. They would not be surprised by that.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, just in follow-up to that, it would kind of be like setting aside a puzzle piece that's gonna fit to your development, but we can't put that in writing yet until they get their plan, but they would mesh. We would hope that they would mesh together.
Yes, and so that's part of the way this was laid out, is that it, not only just on our site, it works well with the grading and the layout of where the buildings need to be. It also lines up well, I should say, with their site. So from this extension of the road, there's a pretty significant grading drop once you get south of this paved area. So our intention would be it would come right along the top of that, which would have the least impact on their ability to develop that paved area, give us access, and so we've left this area open. We've left it in the location that we think makes the most sense, and the applicant is definitely more than willing, would prefer there to be that connection there. So.
And do you know if the bus, because I know that side of South Hills Mall, it does not have as many buildings as it used to, but is that also like a loop for the bus? And if they don't go that way right now, could they swing around? We could ask Dutchess County.
Yeah, we'll certainly have that discussion with the county, but there's bus routes on 9D, and I believe there are also additional routes that go right up into South Hills. I don't know the exact bus stop location, but yes, there are multiple, nearby.
I would really, as Supervisor Edwards says, if we can get that connection eventually, it would really cut down on extra traffic on 9D, and it would give everyone options of different egress routes, so.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So the question that would come before the board then would be about rezoning this from R20 to multifamily, or to, where it's been, so part of it's been zoned shopping center, right? So that's the question that would be in front of us, is would we be willing to do that rezoning? Just so everybody's clear.
Can I just ask another question as I learn stuff? Why do you call the east side the anchor side?
So there are only certain zoning districts that are eligible for anchor zoning in the town, and the SHC zone is eligible, the R20 is not.
Okay. I guess I just don't know what anchor means in planning. But Michael, fill me in.
Yeah, so
I'll do a little tiny symposium later. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you very much, really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Exciting project.
Thank you, folks.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, our second item tonight is the inclusionary zoning, proposed inclusionary zoning law, and related to some of the same issues. So, Mike Welty, welcome. Director of Municipal Development is here to walk us through it a little bit, and we can discuss.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways to get at this problem that we all recognize, right? Affordable housing. It's great when we have a developer that's very well in tune with some of the state financing and some of the more creative ways that affordable housing gets done in the state. A project like that would not be required to do inclusionary zoning because they are already doing affordable housing under a different rubric. But the inclusionary zoning provision, let me just give you a little bit of a background, since it's I'm sure new to at least some of you. We've been talking about the need for quite some time. The comprehensive plan, which we completed in 21, was one of the first documents that really started to talk about that need. There was a committee that was established by the town board, a citizens committee on housing affordability, which did an initial report a little over a year ago now. I think it's maybe almost a year and a half ago now, talking about a number of different potential ways that the town could be looking to increase affordability, and inclusionary zoning was one of the recommendations of that committee. And so the group which I work with, the code update Committee, oh, that's yours? All right, I was gonna steal it. The Code Update Committee started working on what inclusionary zoning might look like, really in probably like late 2024 and through the early part of last year. And we created an initial draft zoning law. But before we even brought it to the town board at that point, we wanted to do some outreach because I think, and this was said by a couple of speakers earlier, you know, unintended consequences are something that we really do want to be careful about, right? I agree completely. And the last thing we want to do is create something that would have the opposite effect of what we're trying to achieve, and that is if you stifle development, if you make it impossible for people to develop more housing here, we're going to have a problem that will grow worse, right? Because at the core, it's really a supply issue more than anything else, a housing supply issue that we need to get at. So, you know, to me, that's very, very important. So last summer and in the fall of last year, did spend quite a bit of time working with, primarily with our local development community, because I wanted to run the draft by them and get their feedback and see, you know, whether they thought what we had initially proposed would pencil out. And not surprisingly, there were a lot of concerns about the initial draft. You know, because we were looking at what other places around the state and around the country were doing, but, you know, New York we're our own environment, the market here is its own place, right? So we need to make sure that it would work. And so we went back and made some final revisions to the local law, and then I came to this board in November of last year, November 12th, and did an initial presentation, which some of you will remember who were on the board last year. And, you know, I think there was a lot of progress we had made on that draft. I think it was in pretty good shape, but there were still some, you know, some questions. And so the board asked us to go back and look and think about some of the questions that were raised and see if we could do, you know, make some refinements. And so the draft that you're looking at now, the one that's in your packet, is basically a red line version, a markup version of the draft from November. So these are just the changes that we made since then. So I thought that would be useful for you to know. Why is it so messy, right? But that's why. So I mean, first of all, stepping back for a minute, what is inclusionary zoning? Ultimately, what it is a requirement that all new development contribute to providing some level of affordability in their projects. So in our draft local law, what we're asking for is 10% of units in really larger projects above 10 units, to be affordable and workforce units. The law is really broken up into two sections. One is some changes to the zoning code, which begin on page 8 of this local law. But those are where the requirements are, and that's primarily geared to, you know, a potential applicant, a developer who's looking at the town as a place to do work. It's also for the planning board and the public to understand this is what the town is asking for. And then there's a second part of the local law, which is a brand new chapter to the town code, which would be chapter 52, which is actually up front. I guess we did this backward. We did it numerically, so that's why it's that way. But anyway, and chapter 52 would really get at the administration side of this, right? How do we ensure that units that are set aside for affordability are kept affordable? How do we ensure that the tenants there are eligible for this housing? And how do we set the rents? All of those kinds of things. And there's a lot of detail that goes into that. We did work when we drafted the initial code with Hudson River Housing, which is a not-for-profit that does a lot of this kind of work. They're working with the city of Beacon right now in a similar in this way. But an organization like them or somebody else could be the administrative agent that would be administering these units on behalf of the town. And that would be something that, who that is exactly would be selected by the town board once the law, it becomes effective. But the main changes that we made from the version in November is, and I think the most significant one is that we've limited the law to rental housing. The initial version did include provisions for sale units. Very, very difficult to make work. I mean, we were having a hard time coming up, trying to figure out how to make that feasible. I think, the feedback that we got was that that's going to be a real challenge. I think it's something we can revisit again in the future. I'm not, and continue to work on. But I think it's that piece of it was really not penciling out well. On the rental side, which is now what the law really is providing, I think it does work pretty well. We did spend a lot of time. I appreciated David Kaminsky's comments earlier. He's one of the people who spent a lot of time with us and really took the time to read the law, make suggestions, do his own research. He's not the only one, but he was one of the most active, and I really do appreciate his time. But we got into the real nitty-gritty of the law. For example, when one of the most important parts of this law is on page 3 is how do you calculate the rent for affordable and workforce units, and making sure that language was clear and is understandable for everybody was really important. Defining, for example, in more detail than we had originally, how utilities are in that, because the premise of this is that your housing should be not more than 30% of your income. That's the standard that, like, most of these laws are based on. And then affordable units, you're looking at folks who are in the 60 to 80% of the area median income range, and workforce, you'd have to be in the 80 to 100% of the area median income. But in some apartments you have utilities that are included, in others you have utilities that are in addition to the rent. So you need to be able to make sure that there's a very clear way that that's all spelled out. And so I think that the current draft has really cleaned up a lot of those things. I know, at least in talking to David, that he felt it was very helpful to make those things clear, and in his standpoint. We also looked at, we did talk about parking. We did make a proposed amendment related to parking, basically, reducing the amount of off-street parking that's required as a minimum for the affordable units, and also recognizing the difference, for example, in some of the town, in what the standard should be, maybe in a walkable area like our town centers, like Arlington, versus in another part of the town. And so I think that piece of it we addressed as well. Ultimately, I mean, there's a lot here. And so I would encourage you to, follow up with me with questions if you have them. But we were, again, really looking to make this workable. Oh, that's it. I knew if I delayed long enough, I'd finally come to that one thing that was waiting at the tip of my tongue. I mentioned before the requirement. I want to explain also that there are bonuses. So it is required, under this law, it would be required that 10% of the units in a project be below market rate, right? So 1 in 10. However, there are very substantial bonuses that you would be able to also obtain. You would be able to basically, for every affordable unit that you create, or every, I should say, below market rate unit you create, you could have one additional market rate unit, right, above what you would be allowed under what the density provisions in the code. You can have some additional building height, an additional floor of building height. I talked about the off-street parking already. We did reduce application fees for the below market rate units and the rec fee for below market rate units. So there are things that are in there that are intended to help make things pencil out. And, based on the feedback so far, I think we are at a point where what we have now is workable. So, some of it is for some folks it's new, for others it's not. We have developers here who work like in Westchester and Rockland and elsewhere who are quite familiar with these things. And I remember one of them in particular commenting, if this is what's required, that's what we'll do. That was kind of his way of looking at it, because we've done this before. We'll make it work. I think, looking at the numbers with the bonuses that we've put in here now, I think is going to, address the concern that we would have the unintended consequence of pushing people away from doing business here and instead create something that people can really work with. And that's really the goal. So that's what's in the law now. Happy to talk with you now or in the future about any specifics that you would like.
Thank you very much, Mike. And there's been a lot of work here, so I just want to thank you and thank everybody who contributed to the process, which includes a lot of town staff and town consultants, as well as people who were willing to participate. Legal department, all kinds of folks were involved. The last thing I would just add is that I think AMI can be a little bit vague, and when we talk about affordable housing, it's like who are we actually talking about? So I went and looked to see what 80% of AMI is right now of median income. And I think we talked about this last year, but I just feel like it's always helpful to talk about that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, might not be up to date like 2026, but it's close, I think. That 80% of area median income for Dutchess County in a one person household is $69,000 a year in income. And for a two-person household is $78,750. And for a three-person household is $88,600. For a four-person household is $98,400. So, and it goes up from there, right? So, but that gives you a rough sense of what we're talking about in terms of income. These are not, this is not housing for people who are living in extreme poverty. This is for, when we talk about workforce housing, we're addressing the problem that a lot of working people who are working a full-time job and sometimes more than one full-time job are still rent burdened or rent, they're paying 30% or more of their whole income on housing, and sometimes up to 50% of their income on housing, simply because their wages don't match what housing costs in the area. So those numbers are always helpful to me because it helps me think about who we're talking about here, everybody from home health aides to teachers' aides to other folks who may not be making as much money, but who are working people who really, we need a diversity of working people in our community. It also includes sometimes seniors on a fixed income as well.
Or a parent who has to stay home and take care of the kids because they can't afford childcare. So there's that two-person, that could be one salary at $78,000, but there's two people in the household because they're taking care of dependents.
Well, and, yeah, and one of the questions.
That'd be three people.
Yeah,
Two parents and a baby.
Oh,
that's
the
right.
third person, the baby counts.
The baby counts.
The baby counts, and that's 88,600, right? So yeah, and I mean, I think that there's a larger question here about why are we needing more and more housing? It's partly because family size is shrinking, right? So you have populations of people like divorced parents with kids. You have a lot of single parents and people very mobile in transition. So we have a lot of different kinds of family types that we need to ensure can live here. So that's a little piece that seems worth adding. Anybody else have comments, questions?
Yes, I understand that the keeping the workforce here, that we need more affordable housing. The cost is rising, it's understandable, but some of the concerns for comparing to another law, for example, equal pay, that if we want to, it's something state imposed, then we want to push it to enforce it locally. The problem what I see is that we need to audit them. The similar point I'm trying to say, in your view, what's the administrative burden? Because we have to validate now, we are talking about the income. So we have to verify the income.
Yes.
That gives more burden to the town. Do you
So,
thought about it?
That's a great question. The purpose of having an administrative agent as part of this is because, frankly, the town is not really equipped to be doing income verification and those types of things, nor I don't think people are particularly comfortable with sharing all of that information with, their local government official, right? So, and that's okay. So the idea is to use a third party, a not-for-profit, as an administrative agent, again, selected by the town board, that has that expertise, that, and they basically, if you will, they work as the rental agent for those units in cooperation with the owner, developer of those projects.
At the expense of the developer.
And it is at the expense of the developer. And in fact, that was one of the concerns that we worked through pretty well. I guess there are examples of this, being done all around the country. So there's a lot of examples you can draw from. And in some places that, I guess, can be very expensive. Right. We have, worked with some of our local not-for-profits and have an idea about what those costs would be. And once we shared that information with some of the local development community, I think there was a much greater comfort level that that's not onerous, that's a fair thing. But it wouldn't be something, again, that the town would have to staff up to do or anything like that, which I think would be very much problematic. It would be working with an entity that already exists in the region.
And I think Hudson River Housing is doing that.
In Beacon.
In Beacon,
Yeah.
and there's other nonprofits doing it in.
Rupco does this in a
Rupco.
number of communities. There's a few, yeah.
Okay. And for example, this law we already know Eastdale, and further, if they have an expansion, this will how much disrupt or it will be favor?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Excuse me, so there's a provision as to for whom it applies to.
Okay.
That's in the first page, where are we?
Said it's only new construction, correct?
It's new.
Oh, it's
and-
only new construction, correct. Yeah, it's new
Yeah.
residential development.
So that's what, so the Eastdale, we have, talks about the new development, expansion, that
Would they
they're
be
already talking
subjected to
about.
that? Is that what
So
you're
how much that will affect?
Those units are, that they're talking about, again, that none of that has been,
Right.
approved yet or even come to the town board yet, but they are looking at for sale units, and so those units would not be, fall under this law. But a lot of the other projects, for example, Hudson Heritage, which we'll be hearing from next week, right? We hope, they have a large residential component. That would be new construction that would fall within, because it would be rental, it would fall within the purview of this law. But it would be only projects going forward from when the law is adopted. It doesn't go retroactive to projects that are already here.
And it's only for rentals.
And it's only for rentals, correct?
It says here that it excludes mobile homes, right?
It does, yeah.
So the last question is,
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the New York State, is it trying to push like 25% of affordable, like when, this case may be different, but in general, when you're building affordable, once you sign up for the affordable housing projects, they try to push more for 25% of the,
Well, there are a lot of different financing programs out there, and some of them do have higher requirements. I think, again, this isn't meant to solve all of the affordable housing issue, right? This is really kind of one slice of it. As we already talked about, it's not really dealing with the extreme affordability issues for people who are really poor, right? It's really for working folks. And it's asking the development community to help contribute to that solution, right? So I think there's a limit to what you can really ask and still, in fairness. But there are other programs, tax incentive programs, bond programs that that, like the one that we heard earlier, that have different requirements for the percentage of affordability that makes sense, given those incentives, right?
And so, just to be clear, so this would be, unless there's some kind of exception for some reason, anybody who's building 10 or more rental units new in the town has to set one aside. This is a minimum requirement for everybody.
Right.
But there are other funding sources, particularly state funding sources and financing structures where if someone comes with a proposal and says, we're gonna do something that is gonna have 25% affordable housing, then this law gets set aside. We don't ask for both, because they're already providing a larger amount of affordable housing, a larger percentage, than this law would. So this is sort of the baseline to me. If you're gonna build 10 or more rental units in the town, one of each 10 has to be set aside, under these provisions. And then there's a bunch of other things that we could also be trying to do as well.
Absolutely.
So, that other developers could propose.
And then, just to add that, for example, this is only for rental, is that right? Okay,
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you have other questions after tonight, and,
Right.
you know where to find me.
And there's other cool models. I have to talk about Somers for just a second. I just went down to Somers and saw some townhouses that are being built there, in which there's there are units for sale. They're condos for sale, townhouses for sale, but each one has an apartment underneath of it. And so you are able to, each person who buys one of these is a landlord for one unit. It's essentially a built-in accessory dwelling unit, and you have the income from that rental property toward your own mortgage. It's not for everybody, right? Not everybody wants to be a landlord, not everybody is a good landlord, for someone who is in an affordable apartment. But there's 8 of these, as part of a larger development, and that's actually 16 units, right? Of 8 rentals and 8 for sale, units, all of which are affordable. So there's a bunch of different other models of ways of trying to help people afford housing. Making it easier for people to create duplexes, things of that sort, right, where people can, there's a lot of different options, but this is sort of, to me, one important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and this is important for the town too, because we have a workforce. And it's surprising how many of them live in Highland and are across the river because it's more affordable there. They can actually afford to get a house there or an apartment there, whereas here, it's more expensive. It's definitely more of a struggle. Agreed. I just want to reiterate one more time, thank you to all the developers that helped you with this, and David Kaminsky, thank you for speaking today. But I like that because you've already gone to the people it's going to affect. So you've gotten their input. There may be some more changes that have to come down the line, but I appreciate that you reached out first as you were writing the law, and I think that's very beneficial to everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think we all learned a lot through the process too, so it's been a good process.
Okay, unless there's objections from the board, I think that what I would suggest is that at next week's meeting, we set a public hearing on this law, and then it'll be about a month to notice that, and then about somewhere in, second meeting of May or whatever, we would adopt. If there's anybody who has concerns about that or wants further revisions, let me know. Otherwise, I think after 17 iterations, probably there's more than that, it's in good shape.
And just add to what Supervisor Edwards says, I don't think I've said Peekskill in the meeting twice before, but I know that they've had a successful inclusionary zoning.
I thought that's what you were maybe
Yes,
thinking
that's
about.
what-
Yes, they've had
Yeah.
inclusionary zoning for quite some time. In fact, that's one of the laws that we initially looked at, theirs and Beacons and a number of other examples, yeah.
And this is familiar enough that, because when developers have come in, we've talked about this and said, this is in the works. And most developers now are just, as you said, yep, we're used to this, we've seen it before, it's familiar, we can do that. Because the density bonuses and the other bonuses offset the cost, the extra costs, and make it work, so.
What is the cutoff? So if there's somebody right now who's in planning, working on like multiple rental units, what is the cutoff once this is adopted, that if they're like, I'm thinking about the one on Innis, or the one on the old farmland, that hasn't broken ground yet. I wonder, what is the distinction of like, when you're like, oh, just kidding, this law's been adopted, now you have to add those units?
On page 2, there's section 3, it says exemptions, That's where it basically, this is the initial kind of verbiage in the local law, but this is where it talks about who this would apply to, right? So if you already have a subdivision with a valid preliminary approval, or you already have a site plan that's completed seeker review, the way we wrote it was we felt that at that point you've committed,
that.
quite a bit of resources to this project, so we don't want to have to go back at that point. But so if you're before that part, those steps, then you would be required to make the changes.
Got it. Good question.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so the item number 3 is going to be postponed till next week when we have a full team here to answer questions. And item number 4 stems from what we, from last week, right? The unexpected resignation of Town Board Member Bill Reuter in Ward 1 to take a Associate Justice position in the Village of Wappingers Falls. And I just wanted to have a conversation tonight, briefly at least, about what the board's inclinations are. We could leave that seat empty until an election in November. We're not required to fill it. I feel a little uncomfortable about that. Here we are talking about autumn sky, and luckily Bill had a chance to see this proposal and meet with the developers a couple of times and give some input as the ward representative before his resignation. But, their Ward 1 business, it's hard to go without having somebody to represent Ward 1. But if we do, others might disagree. It's always a tricky thing for a board to appoint when it's an elected position. And also, if we are going to appoint, then what's our process going to look like? How do we want to do that? So I just wanted to open that up for any thoughts people might have.
Well, I think we've gone through this before, years ago, when we had a resignation for the board. And I think it's a good idea to open it up for anybody who's interested from the first board to submit a resume. And then we can interview with them and have them even come and talk at a town hall meeting and then decide who we think is going to be the best fit.
Is there a time restriction, just as, if we're gonna fill this position?
The only time restriction is that we cannot appoint within 90 days of an election, I believe. So if you count 90 days back from election day, in that window, the seat needs to stay open until the election. But until that time, I think we're flexible. I thought originally we had only a short period of time to appoint, but we can appoint till, I would guess that'd be first week of August, something like that.
Oh, 90 days.
90 days would be, yeah.
That's
I
3
think
months.
easily until July 31st, we could choose to
Got it.
appoint. So, and I agree with Dan, I think if we're going to appoint, it's good to invite applications. I'm not sure, I think it would depend to me on how many invitations, like if 2 or 3 people are interested, then we might invite everybody to a town board meeting. If we get 25 resumes, I might suggest that we create, appoint a couple of board members to be a search committee, which I think some other towns have done, and sort of identify a couple of finalists, and then have us all meet those folks, or however we want to do it. But I'm happy to make that dependent on how much interest there is. Anybody else? Presumably over the next month or two.
Ward 1 is our neighbor, Ward 2, and I feel like the responsibility that these people need a voice at town board.
Oh, so you're going to represent 2 wards, is
No,
what you're saying? Just kidding.
No, not saying that.
You're hired.
But I do feel responsible because they're just down the road from us, and
That's right.
there's a lot of new stuff happening. We've got Tri-Muni.
Right.
Bill has left a vacancy, a very, we miss him.
I will
'Cause he's
say,
on so many committees. He's on finance and he's on Tri-Muni and,
well,
I just
will
wanted to say
that-
thank you to Bill
yeah.
Yes.
publicly,
Yes,
because
yes.
I wasn't here, I was on vacation.
That's right.
And
you
I
weren't
got
here last
mad
week.
texts, like, I was like, ah.
Right.
So I wasn't here, and I just wanted, I
Yeah, we
did not
miss
see him.
him. He's taken.
He was in my office, I think, actually, when I happened to call my office when I heard, and they said, we have a guest speaker. And he got on the phone, I go, ah.
Yeah.
But I
That
didn't
was-
get a
yeah.
chance to say anything, and I just wanted to say thank you to him, because he really did a lot, and I really appreciated all his work and help.
He was a very active
Thank you,
board
Bill.
member. Yeah. The other thing is that the Tri-Muni Commission is not an elected position, and he is able to stay, so he is remaining as chair of the Tri-Muni Sewer Commission, which is great. And, it's the elected position that has to, but since the board makes that appointment, he can remain in that spot, which is good. But in any case, he was active in a number of other areas as well, so.
I just wanted to clarify, it is the town board's, statutory responsibility to fill that position, through the end of the year. It's not, there's no, option for a special election or anything like that. If the seat is to be filled, it's by you, and it's through the end of the year.
Okay, it doesn't sound like anybody's against filling the position. Sounds like there's a general sense that we would like to invite people to submit letters of interest or resumes or whatever and see how that works. Over the next few weeks, give people a few weeks, perhaps, till mid-May or something like that, and try to appoint by the end of May. Is that a reasonable time frame? Something along those lines? Okay. Maybe appoint the second meeting in May or the first meeting in June, depending how it goes. Okay, good, thank you. And I think we can do that through the supervisor's office and invite people to identify themselves, and then we'll go from there. Okay. We have committee reports tonight. I just wanted to report a few things from the supervisor's perspective. The first one is about parking, since that's one of the themes tonight. We have been monitoring parking spaces over at the court. And this morning, there was a big court docket, and at 9 o'clock, there were 114 cars. At 10 o'clock, a little after 10 o'clock, there were 93 cars. At 11:15, there were 4 cars. So what we're seeing is an enormous load on that parking lot for very short periods of time. And so there's a kind of scheduling question there to me about why is it that do we really need to build, and this goes back to what David Kaminsky was saying about the expense of building. Do we really need to build 140 parking spaces to be used for an hour 4 times a month, really, because those are the big court dockets? And is there another way? And so it highlights this question of parking, and I think it's a big one that I've talked with a lot of people about. We are a very parking-oriented town. We're a very car-oriented town. There are not a lot of other transit options, right? So you can't just sort of say, oh, well, we're going to give up all parking, off-street parking, and people will figure out how to get around, because the bus service is not necessarily going to help people get where they need to go. We're too sprawling for that. We don't have the density of a city. So I think there's a bunch of questions to ask about that, but we also really don't want to pave everything. And where we can find a balance, or whether we can use this sort of town center. But anyway, it's a problem that the town is dealing with directly that I wanted to mention. The second thing I wanted to say is that we have secured, as of yesterday, bond anticipation notes, which are BAN's short-term funding for the next year for the Poughkeepsie Day School project. Truist Bank was the winning bidder, and we have an interest rate of 2.535 for the next 12 months, which is pretty good and extremely good. And that will enable us to get the project done and then do long-term bonding for only exactly what we spent. The price of the purchase of the Poughkeepsie Day School was going to be $6.6 million. In further negotiation, I got that down to $6.35. So there'll be some savings there. And the closing date is set for next Thursday. And I believe we've worked through, I think as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, it's a question about when they're going to remediate the mold in one of the downstairs bathrooms. I think we've got everything squared away, and we are ready to go to closing. We are giving them a $5,000 credit for a substantial number of some furniture that they're leaving that are items that recreation and other departments identified as being useful and valuable to us as we go to that space. So I wanted people to know about that. That's where we are on that. And we had, Shanta was there and Mike Welty. We had terrific interviews yesterday with consultants to start work on the Kmart site, the proposed Burnett Tucker Brownfield Opportunity Area, which really needs to have another name. Or it has he just had some kind of acronym. The winning proposal from Colliers was incredibly exciting. And so I'm really looking forward to working on the contract and bringing that forward soon. And I think it's gonna be about a 14-month process they propose, 14 or 15-month process of visioning on that site. And last but not least, I just wanted to just give you a heads up from your email. Oh, two things. First of all, the resident services guide should be going into mailboxes. It's gonna go into the mail tomorrow or Friday. So we're anticipating that it's gonna, if it doesn't land in people's mailboxes, the last day of this week, it will next week. And I wanted to thank Erica Bushel, who did a fabulous job again with the layout. It was a little easier this year because we had everything from last year, and we're gonna do this, has all the information about the community day in May, transfer station dates. There's a whole page devoted to being a good neighbor and how not to end up with the zoning folks visiting you, and a whole lot of other stuff in there. One of the themes this year is the Rev 250, and so there's a 2-page spread about some of the historic houses in the town from the Revolutionary period. So thank you to Anne for coordinating that from the committee, the Historic Preservation Committee. So that's on the way. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that the CAC has sent us a proposal and a draft resolution to have no and low mow May, which is to encourage people on a voluntary basis in the town to find a patch in their yard, maybe in their backyard, or a defined area where they don't mow for May in order to help pollinators in that vulnerable time of year as they just emerge, find something in clover or things like that. So that's coming for next week, and it just arrived from the CAC. It's not something we've discussed before, so I wanted to just draw it to everybody's attention. Okay, I think that's it. Also, I was able to mention that Bill Ruder's staying on the Tri-Muni. I think that's everything from my list. Finance Committee.
Sure. We met this week with Comptroller Patel just to review the first quarter report, which we do, and it takes up a large portion of time.
And that's coming next week, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So we're getting that ready for the next, April 22nd meeting. And we also have to meet again soon to discuss a new policy and procedure from the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee. So we'll meet again quickly to discuss that. Everything's going along great. And she did go over with us too in the Finance Committee about the bond proposal. So it's good to understand all of that. I think that's it.
Okay. Great, thank you. Next is Recreation and Senior Services.
So we met earlier today, and the basketball paving is taking place. It should commence when early May. The townwide yard sale would be on April 25th. Last year we had 29 registrations total, and we've already hit that mark this year. And it isn't closed yet, so if residents want to participate, it's still open. And then there's a community project on April 25th, which sounds very similar to the environmentally friendly item that Supervisor Edwards mentioned. It's planting, and you could fill me in more. What is it? Anti-maples? What are we planting?
Yeah, we're planting maples, yeah.
Maples, yes. We're planting maples on the 25th.
Whereabouts?
At Stanley's Still.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's part of all the variety of various upgrades going on at Stanley Still. Perfect.
Pickleball is still taking place, and the summer camp registration, I think, is open. So
Yeah, it's 35%
35%.
filled, so yeah,
35%.
it's going well.
Can I just add something to Rebecca and I were at the opening for girls softball, and when she announced to the softball girls that the bathroom was gonna be finished in maybe a couple months, they were jumping in the air and screaming in happiness. So that was really good that you guys could have seen them. They were quite happy.
I wasn't able to make opening day, but I saw so many pictures and videos of very happy young people and families, so that was tremendous as well.
So a lot of work has gone into the fields, and they're in good shape.
The fields look amazing, and all the coaches were just saying, that our grounds crew has done an amazing job this year.
And Nate is doing a tremendous job and is always energetic and excited, so it's great to report from that.
Okay, fantastic. Joint water plant, is it Barb or,
It's me. We were reviewing, engineering companies last week for a comprehensive review, and we have a winner. I just don't remember their name. And all our water systems are working great, and the Joint Water Board is very busy studying the new adapted, not adopted, intermunicipal agreement. So we're gonna look at that, a section at a time, because it's a very lengthy thing, and thanks went out to Rebecca Edwards and, Jim Challey, and the other person who I forget his name was Bill Mason, Bill. Anyway, all the people who were working on the IMA, they said big thanks to them, because it's been 2 years that they've been working on the
there's
IMA.
been conversations about that. I think Jim Challey gets the credit for that,
Big
because
kudos.
he's stayed and done a tremendous amount of work on getting the IMA squared away. So, it's great.
The comprehensive plan that we mentioned, that we have to split the cost,
That's right.
that's something the board already approved, or that's gonna be coming in the future?
I think it's on our capital projects list, but I don't believe we've approved it yet.
Yes, maybe you might want to, because it's gonna be $250,000 on our hand, so
Right.
it's a big money.
I think we did not approve it until we knew what the final bid was, right? So we didn't know what our half costs. So if that's moving forward now, we did know it was coming, and we've been talking about it as a capital project. That goes to the capital, we are gonna start working on the first capital plan now that we have the policy in place, and getting joint water board and tri-muni projects, as well as anything at the Veolia plant that's our own property, but, leased out. Or Veolia operates it for us. We need to get all of those in the capital plan so that we don't have things like this show up that we don't know
Well, I
about.
think that's what, we have to make sure that that's also written into the IMA.
Yes.
So that we're ready for those, because it's even since we rewrote the IMA, I think there's a new fund, and that wasn't even part, we have to put the joint water board in one of our funds, so Minnell knows about that, but that was not what we used to do.
No, last year in the audit, we created a whole separate,
yes.
a whole separate fund for the joint water plant. Yep. And Brian Martinez with the city had gotten the water plant in the habit of doing an annual capital plan.
Good.
And it's usually done in the summer, so it should be ready, but we'd love to know what they are. They do it
Yeah.
before the fall budget, but it would be helpful to know. Okay, I think also that, I'm now the liaison from Tri-Muni, because as the remaining board member on Tri-Muni, there's not a lot to report right now. We are in dialogue, in ongoing dialogue with the DEC about, the consent orders, that, all three of the municipalities and the plant have been asked to address. And the town board has done what we need to do, so we're sort of, working to get everybody on board with that. And I think that's it. Are there people who, from their liaison reports, if anybody wants to weigh in on anything else?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to weigh in. I was able to attend the Climate Smart meeting this month, and they reviewed the list of their points that they need to, they're renewing their bronze level, and also we're very close to silver, and they discussed what activities they need to do to get us those few more points to get us up to the silver level. So it's very exciting. Then
Do
we
we
also
get a point for no or low mo may?
Probably.
We're
Do we
scraping for like
really?
a point here and a point there. I don't know.
I
There's some
don't
things, right.
recall that being on the list, but that's interesting too. Anyways,
Susan will know.
and
Susan will know.
we also discussed about sludge that comes out of the sewer treatment plant and how we're handling it now, and trying to find some new avenues and some new resources to research solutions for this problem, because right now we're shipping it very far away to get rid of it, and yeah, it's just not working. And then we're also having a table on Earth Day at Vassar Farms. That's this Saturday, April 18th, from 10 to 1 a.m., 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Vassar Farm. So we'll have a table there, and the CAC is gonna have a table there too, or maybe we're sharing a table.
Yep, absolutely.
And then I just want to put a shout out for Historic Preservation Commission, that Thursday, April 23rd, Tony Musso's going to be speaking on Revolutionary War sites in the Hudson Valley. This is gonna be at 7 PM at the Senior Center, so it should be a good time.
Great, April 23rd, and that's the
April-
next, and that's
Yep.
the next in the ongoing Rev 250 series.
That's right.
Okay, fantastic. Anybody else?
Since you brought up, since you brought up the CAC, and thank you for talking about Earth Day at the Dutchess County Earth Day at Vassar Farms. Again, Rebecca said that all of those cleanup dates are on the website. Anybody in Ward 2, I'm gonna be cleaning up on Wildwood by the vernal pool, the stretch between Alexander and Laurie Street on Saturday, April 25th from 8 to 9 in the morning when traffic is slow.
Didn't you pull a shopping cart out of that vernal
That-
pool last year?
There was another pool off of Pleasant Drive, the one across from Red Oaks Mill, and I pulled a quarter of a car panel out. I was by myself, and I thought, if I pull too hard and I lose my footing, I might just go into the pond. But I got a half of a bicycle and a quarter panel of a green car.
Wow.
Yeah, when we did Peach Hill last year, we pulled 7 tires out of the ooze. Yeah, and if they got to be too deep, I was telling the kids, no, just leave them, that's part of the environment now, that's habitat.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, anybody else? Yes, I will do another shout out in the newsletter this week too
Thank
for
you.
the cleanups. Anybody else? Okay, all right, thank you everyone for a productive workshop meeting. I would move to suspend the rules for anyone who might want to speak for up to 3 minutes on anything they want to speak to us about. So moved?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries 6-0. And the floor is open for anyone who might want to speak on anything. We'll start with the folks who are in the room. Yes, welcome.
Hello,
Hi.
my name's Chris Irving, I live off McDonald Heights, I believe that's Ward 3. I've
Yes.
contacted the town numerous times about my neighbor's trash flowing into my yard, and I don't know who to talk to anymore because I just keep getting ignored. I have pictures if you guys like to see it, so I don't know who to,
Okay.
I mean, it's.
Who have you contacted in the town?
I've talked to people downstairs when I put in an application for a fence, and they told me I needed to pay $800 for a variance, because I can see it as I go out my yard. They have an outhouse, and the smell comes into my actual house, and I don't know where to go anymore. I've lived there for a couple of years, and it's gotten worse. And as of 2 weeks ago, the guy that lived there got arrested by the FBI. So, yeah.
Can you tell us what address this is on?
That address is 1012 Dutchess Turnpike.
1012 Dutchess Turnpike?
Yes.
Okay. All right. This is not a case I'm familiar with, but we will certainly take a look.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. Okay. Anybody else who's in the room who wants to speak on anything? I can turn to online. Doreen, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm a little concerned about the inclusionary zoning because of the fact that at the last time this was presented in November, there were many developers there complaining about the law. And now there really isn't anybody. And whatever happened to that old, statement there, if there's like one side that's happy, then, well, they got everything they got. And what happened to the other people? So I'm just concerned about this. And again, we keep hearing, I've heard over years and years about, people don't want to build in the town. And I've said this before, I have an open space map from like 2006 or 2007. And if you see what's left, I think a lot of people would be shocked. So I don't really think that any of the town code is keeping people from developing in the town. And, they come back a lot of times, the developers afterwards. You see all these tax certs and their developments, their appraised prices are reduced. And again, that means that the rest of the tax base has to absorb the cost. So, I'm going to take a look at this, but again, I'm a little concerned about it. And, you talk about bonuses. Well, what about pilots? A lot of these people, developers then come in and they ask for pilots. And again, when everybody isn't paying their share of taxes, it doesn't just go away. The need to have that revenue, it just gets spread about the remaining tax base. So So that's my concern. And then the last thing, about the sewage sludge. One of the things being considered, is that anaerobic digestion?
I think possibly, but one of the issues with the sewage waste is that it does contain PFAS, and so any kind of treatment is going to have to remove PFAS, and I don't believe that anaerobic digestion does. But we're gonna quickly get into an engineering conversation that's gonna be beyond me, but I could point you to the working group that's working on this, and they could talk to you about that, but it's certainly in that general idea of processing, waste at high heat, rather than, right now, we spend $330,000 a year, at least, usually more, because we have periods of having to haul liquid sludge, to haul and incinerate in Naugatuck, Connecticut, and so we're looking for what might be a more efficient way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I move that we, at 8:35, adjourn.
So moved. I mean, second.
All those in favor? Everybody in favor? Aye? Okay. 6-0, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, and thanks again to everyone who came and presented tonight.